If you use Google Sheets or want to start using it, then these 3 quick tips are guaranteed to save you time. So I'm just going to get straight into them now. Tip number 1 is autofill. So you might know already that when you type a month and then click the bottom right corner and drag it down, that it autofills the rest of the year. If you didn't know that, then that's another little bonus tip for you. But it also works for the days of the week as well. So if you type in Monday, then click the bottom right corner of the cell and drag it down, and it autofills with the days of the week. A real handy feature. So we've got the price per unit here at $4.99, and I want this price to be exactly the same all the way down. Now, again, you can click and drag this bottom corner if you wanted to, which is fine. But if you have a sheet with hundreds or even thousands of rows of data on it, then that could be a little bit time consuming. So there is a real quick way of doing this, and that is once you've typed in the $4.99, double click the bottom right corner of the cell so you can see the cursor changes to a cross there. Double click that and it will autofill to the end of that column. So it doesn't matter if you've got thousands of rows, it will autofill down to where the end of the data is for that particular column. It's the same with formulas as well. So I want a formula in this total of units sold multiplied by price per unit. So if I type in equals, and look at that, Google's actually auto-completed a formula for me. So it's guessed the formula that I want to put in there, which is C3, which is the unit sold, times by D3, which is the price per unit, which is what I want. So it's saying if you want to accept this formula, then hit the tab key and it will automatically put that in for you. So we now have this formula in this cell. If you now double click the bottom right corner of the cell, the formula will auto-fill down to the last line in that data set. So that was time-saving tip number 1. Pretty cool, isn't it? So moving on to tip number 2, which is the best and quickest tip ever. And I just have to say, Microsoft, if you're watching this, Excel, you need to cop on with this one because this is just brilliant. So tip 2 is all about freezing rows and columns. So there's 2 ways to do this, but once I show you this first way, you'll probably not even bother with the second way at all. So if you look in the top left corner of the sheet, you'll see 2 thick grey border lines. And to freeze a row, all you need to do is grab the bottom border line here. You can see that your cursor changes to a hand. Just grab that and drag it down to the row where you want it to be frozen to. So if we say like we want the first 3 rows frozen, scroll down and you can see that those rows are now frozen. To change it, all you need to do is just click and drag and move it to wherever you want it to. And if you don't want any rows frozen, then just click and drag it back up to the very top. It's the same with the columns. So for the columns, you need to click and drag the thick grey line that's on the right hand side of this cell. Just drag it over to the columns that you want frozen. So you can see A and B are now frozen. And to get rid, all you need to do is just click and drag it back over here, and it's all changed. I love that tip so much. The second way of doing it is a longer version, is to go into View on your menu and click Freeze, and then you can select how many rows you want frozen and how many columns you want frozen. And then to undo, you just go back into View and Freeze, and then select no rows and no columns. And using the view in the menu is how you would do it in Excel as well. So my final tip is for when your columns or rows don't fit the data that's in them. So you can see here we've got some data cut off. So you could spend time, if we wanted column C here, we wanted that a bit wider, you could spend time clicking and dragging to try and find the best width for that column. And then when you scroll down, you might have more data further down that's wider, and so it's still cut off. So a much quicker way is to double click to the right of the column. So if you click between column C and D up here, double click, you can see the cursor has changed to a double-ended arrow. And if you double click, it will automatically auto-fit the widest part of that column. So if we do column B here, so we go in between column B and column C, wait for the cursor to change, double click, and it's now fitting the widest part of that column. It works for rows as well. So if we had this row was really deep, what you would need to do is click on the line between rows 1 and 2 for the cursor to change, double click, and it auto fits that row. If you want to do the whole data set in one go, then you would click in this top left corner here, click on there so everything's selected, and just choose one of the columns. So if we do between B and C, double click, and that will auto fit every single column that's highlighted. And the same with the rows, you can double click and it will auto fit all of the rows highlighted in that data set. So as I said, saves so much time. So which is your favourite tip? Let me know in the comments. I've got another 10 tips in this video here, but spoiler alert here, the freeze columns tip is also included in that video because it's just too great not to share again. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.